Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about grandparenting on the spectrum. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a thinker, and that is what we will be thinking about today. So, luckily, here I have Jen, who's going to be helping us think about this in a whole new light so that we can truly think about this. So, thank you so much, Jen, for coming on to my show, sharing your time, your perspective with me. You could be anywhere in the world right now, doing anything right now, but you are with me. So I truly appreciate this. So let's just dive right in. When you hear the words grandparenting on the spectrum, what does that make you think about?
So that makes me think a lot about my own personal experiences because I am the grandma of a 7-year-old on the spectrum. And I am also a school principal at a school that specializes in providing support to kids on the spectrum who have autism.
Oh wow, that's beautiful. So you really have an understanding of individuals on the spectrum. And I guess I have to first ask you, what is the misconception that a lot of people have with children who are on the spectrum?
I think that people have the misconception that there's some kind of limit to what they can accomplish, or there's some kind of, and also that there's some kind of cure. Autism isn't something that we should want to cure. It's something that we need to support so that individuals with autism can reach their full potential.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way to say it because people make it seem like it's like cancer. You know what I mean? Like it's a disease, you know what I mean? That's going to take them to their death. But it's like it's not necessarily like that. It's just an obstacle that we see as an obstacle if we're not on the spectrum. But in reality, it's just them just living life normally. You know what I mean? They don't see anything different. They just know that they just move in a different manner. They operate in a different manner. They understand the world differently than how other people who aren't on the spectrum are. So I guess what made you realize that this was a direction that you wanted to go into, like principle wise, you know what I mean?
So,
In that.
so I started out in my career as a teacher, as an English teacher in a typical school with typical kids. And then I had the opportunity to move into special education and become an assistive technology coordinator. And what assistive technology does is it provides different technologies to individuals who have, certain limitations. Like, for example, I wear reading glasses. The fact that I need reading glasses doesn't indicate what my intelligence is. It just means that my eyes don't work so good. And so,
Yeah.
assistive technologies provide ways for people who have limitations with communication or with reading or with just about anything to be able to succeed with a little help.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little help, a little nudge. No problem with that. Not
Right.
at all. I love that. And I think my next question is like, what's the best part of being a grandparent to your grandchild who's on the spectrum?
Oh my gosh, it's just the most exciting journey because right now it's the end of the school year, and it's really awesome as any parent or grandparent would to look back and say, well, last year at this time, this is where he was, this is what he was doing, and like look at him this year, look at him go, and
Yeah.
just looking at that growth on his journey.
Oh, absolutely. My son is on the spectrum, and every year I just see something that's just like a little shift in him and of him evolving and growing. And it's just the most beautiful thing because I can see that, you know what I mean? I can see that
Hmm.
growth in him. And it's just the other people who are coming into my life or coming into our lives and who are not always in our lives, like they don't understand him, you know what I mean? Or they try to force him to be like other children. And I think that's just an obstacle that I'm dealing with those type of people. But it's like, how do you handle that when other people try to force your grandchild to be, or like those type of children to be like other children? What do you deal? How do you deal with it?
So, I have to remind myself, and sometimes I have to remind other people that this isn't some kind of race to a common finish line.
Thank you.
Everybody is on their own journey. That includes typical people, neurotypical people. That includes people with autism. That includes every single human that's here, right? It's not a
Yeah.
race. It is a journey.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's one of the most challenging parts that I deal with. But for you, what is the challenging part that you deal with when it comes to this?
Um, I think that there's a lot of judgment from others. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of people think, well, if it was my kid, I'd just give them more discipline, or I would just, like, there's a lot of advice coming from all directions. And I know my daughter and her husband experienced that too. Like, the supermarket cashier would have some input as to how you should be raising your child, but strangers
Yeah.
on the street. And I think that's really, really tough.
Oh, absolutely. It is because it puts this pressure on the parents and on the child that doesn't need to be there. You know what I mean? And I think it's just this old way of thinking that we have to meet a certain standard, a certain milestone at a certain time frame to be considered successful or intelligent or oh, have a good future. Because I feel the problem I feel like is that people is always trying to determine a child's future. You know what I mean? They're always trying to
Mhm.
assume and they're always trying to predict, oh, well, if they're not doing this at this age, then they're going to be like this at their age. And it's like, I don't think that's necessarily true. You know what I mean? Is that kind of similar for you as well?
Absolutely. I mean, you said that your child is on the spectrum, and here we are at the end of a school year, and look at all the surprises. Like, you look back over the course of the year, like, I had no idea that, like, we were going in that direction, and like that growth is just so exciting. Um, and I think that focusing on that instead of just focusing on what isn't
Yeah.
is important for other people to realize.
Yeah.
Tell me the good stuff. I know it's challenging, but like, look, he's sitting in a seat and he's not wandering around a restaurant, or like, look at the good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what people need to start focusing on is that when you have a child or you're exposed to a child that's on the spectrum, is just having that compassion, that empathy, and just recognizing that, you know what, they're not meant to be like regular neurotypical individuals who meet those milestones. They are supposed to move at their pace to remind other people who are on that neurotypical spectrum that it's okay to move at a slower pace, that it's okay to move at a pace that works for you. Because I feel like one thing that neurotypical people have an issue with is that they feel like they always have to get to the next goal, to the next goal, to the next goal. It's like always trying to meet something, you know what I mean, to make somebody else like, oh, satisfied. But it's never what they want. And it's not until that they're older that they realize that they can slow down. It's not until they're older that they realize, like, okay, I don't have to move at a certain pace. And I think it's kind of freeing having more people on the spectrum and seeing like it's okay to move slower. It's okay to move at a pace that's regular. And it's nice to see like schools, changing their curriculum and changing the way that they process children in this manner, and I guess for you, since you work in the special educational program and you're principal in this in that industry, I mean, like, how are you guys trying to really accommodate to people on the spectrum?
So the school that I am at, everyone's on the spectrum. It's just a school for kids with autism, and the beauty of it is every student has an individualized plan with their specific goals
Oh,
that
that's
work for
beautiful.
them, right? That's a
Yeah.
requirement, to create an IEP that has those goals. And you were just talking about goals for typical people, and yeah, neurotypical people, they set goals for themselves and they work towards the goals. Well, we just support our students in setting those goals, and then we work to support ways to get them to attain those goals. And maybe it won't happen this year, or maybe it'll happen very quickly, but they just need the support provided so that they can excel and achieve whatever they are capable of achieving.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's beautiful that the way that you guys are doing it, making it very individualized, you know what I mean, making it feel that personalness so that parents can leave their child with you and not have this worry like, oh, are they going to beat my child because they're not doing it correctly or they're not doing it a certain way? You know what I mean? Like, I remember getting yelled at just because my letters didn't reach the certain lines. You know what I mean? So it was
Mm-hmm.
it was just
Sure.
stressful. So it's just like I could only imagine like putting a person on the spectrum in that type of predicament and the stress they would feel by not complying is just, oh my goodness, it's heartbreaking because it was heartbreaking for me. So it's like to know that you guys make it personalized, like as long as you do this, then okay, then we're happy. Is that basically how it is?
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it's sort of like reverse engineering because there's something called the curb cut effect. And you know those curb cuts when you walk on the sidewalk and it like dips down?
Yeah.
Those are put there for wheelchairs, right? For wheelchairs to use the sidewalk and to go into the street and back up onto the sidewalk comfortably. But the curb
Mhm.
cut effect is something like that is put into place and then other people benefit from it. So other people with shopping carts or people that have strollers might benefit from having that curb cut there. So, like you said, yes, schools are becoming more aware that everybody has different needs, and it started with people who have special needs, but really that should expand to everybody. Everybody has their own unique set of needs and
Yes.
challenges, and that is starting to be looked at by more and more schools. How can we support people no matter what their goals are, no matter what they're struggling with?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, I think we do need to start expanding and branching that out into the neurotypical way of individuals as well, just allowing just everyone to know that you are an individual, you know what I mean? You are not
Mm-hmm.
made as everyone else. And I think that's something that is something that people can really take advantage of is just knowing that you are made perfect as you are. So everybody that you come across with in your life, you should think of them as perfect as they are as well, because they are who they are. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and I think people who are on the spectrum, they really put life in a different perspective. You know what I mean? They help you see
Mm-hmm.
life differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I have to ask you, I mean, do you have a moment with your grandchild that just lives rent free in your mind that you cherish?
Oh my gosh, so many, so many. But I always think about that first time that he said hi, Grandma. That was he had limited communication at the time, and his communication just keeps growing. And then one day I was on speakerphone. My daughter was driving her car, and she said, "Hi, Mom," and I said, "Hi, Ben." And then I heard, hi, Grandma," and it was like, whoa, like here we go. This is unexpected and very cool, and something to be celebrated.
Yes, yes, I love that. That's very true because I think my mom had that moment just a couple weeks ago. She came over to drop off some things for myself, and when she went to go hug my son, she gave him a hug, and usually like he would run away or just like like don't hug me, but this time he actually embraced her and
Oh,
actually let her give him a kiss on the cheek, and he was just like give him like a little smile, and like for her that was everything. Like she was just like, oh my goodness, he let me hug him, he let me kiss him, it was so sweet. And it's just like people don't realize like when you have a child on a spectrum, you have to give them that respect. You know what I mean? You have to give
mhm.
them the respect of their space, their boundaries, and everything at an early age because it allows them to recognize who they can be comfortable with. Because right now, my son, he's in the nonverbal stage. So when he talks, it's like, and like he says little things, and it's like sometimes I could just read his mind, because I already know what he wants and his
Sure.
little routines and things. But for people who have come in and they don't know and they have those little glimpses of moments, it's beautiful because it just shows that I'm doing the right thing by being patient with him, by to treating him the way that he needs to be treated. Because when he interacts with other people, he interacts with them now in a more loving, more like affectionate manner that before he really was very like distant with. So it's very nice to see that. And it's like
It
it's
is.
only if like you have somebody on the spectrum that you're surrounded by daily that you really have that appreciation for. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
to have you on my show was really nice because it was just like, huh. I mean, you know what I mean? When
Well,
I read your
if I could just add one thing, because you said that, as a parent, you're sort of the expert on your child. You
Yeah.
you are the expert. And I wrote my book, Grandparenting on the Spectrum, because it was like trial and error for me to realize, even though I was an expert on my children when they were little, the
Yeah.
expert on my grandchild is my daughter and her husband.
Yeah.
right? So they I have to sort of take a back seat, and I think a lot of my book is about that acknowledgement that you're there to support your adult children. You're not there to be the parent.
Yes, that's a
And
valid
it's, yeah,
point.
and it's really important for grandparents, all grandparents, not just grandparents of kids with autism, to realize that the experts on the grandchildren are the parents.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the ones who are constantly there with the children. So I guess it leads me to my next question. What made you want to write this book? I mean, you could have kept this information, this experience all to yourself. I mean, why share it with the world?
I felt like I felt like it's rare to have somebody with the professional expertise of working so long with kids who have special needs and kids with autism, particularly, and combine that with my experience as the grandma of somebody with autism.
Yeah.
It's a sort of cool mix, and it's a lot about relationships and family dynamics and providing support in ways that are truly helpful, because it's not just about doing what you want as a grandma, it's doing what's best for your grandchild and their family.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. So I'm pretty sure you had moments where it's like you had to reframe yourself from going about you handling your grandchildren the way that you handled your children when they were young. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, and how,
When my kids were little, I had the final say. I was mom, and I knew what was good for them. But I can't take that approach with my grandson, because really I
yeah,
have to always defer to my daughter and her husband, because they're the parents. It's sometimes it's
yeah.
hard for grandparents to realize that.
Yeah, yeah, but I think you touch on it beautifully because I think a lot of grandparents need that reminder that you are no longer inside the home. You know what I mean? You're not the one that's doing the raising. You're not the one that has to deal with everything of the day in and out. You come in and you come and go. You know what I mean? As you
Right.
please. You know what I mean? Unless you literally live in the
Don't
home.
live
You know
there.
what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like then it's different. But at the same time, it's like you will always be the grandparent. You are not the actual parent. You know what I mean? You did
Right.
your time. You know what I mean?
Even
You
though
had that moment.
Mitzi, once in a while you do go like, like, maybe you want to step in and say, well, but you really should do this or that. But you have to refrain from doing that, or you have to frame it in a way that's a supportive suggestion versus like,
Yes.
you're doing it wrong and this is what you need to do.
Yes, because those words are so harsh, you know what I mean? Because as a parent, I mean, we're trying the best as we can
Right.
with the understanding and the materials that we know, you know what I mean? And we're trying
Mhm.
to do things differently. We're trying to move differently. But then it's like when you put it in the form of like when you reframe the words and you do suggestions where it doesn't feel like, oh, you're condoning them or you know what I mean? You're being rude to them, you know, to the parent. Like it really shifts the parent's perspective, you know, because sometimes my mom has these moments where it's like, or my dad has these moments where it's like, oh, it's black and white. You know what I mean? You're doing it wrong. And it's like,
Right.
no, I'm going to reject everything that you're saying because you're coming at me full throttle and I don't need any of that. And neither does my son. But then when they come at me in a certain way that's more gentle and more of like a suggestion, then it's like, okay, then I can consider it. You know, so yes, most definitely those type of approaches really does help the parent because it's like we want the help, we want the information that you have that obviously that we don't have because obviously you lived before us and you've experienced this before us. But at the same time, you have to respect that I want to do things a certain way. So yes, I love that you also bring that in. So I guess my next question is, what are three things you're grateful for in this world?
Oh my gosh, I'm grateful for so much. I am grateful for family. I'm so grateful, for my grandson and my daughter and my son and everything, my husband. I am grateful that right now I am about a block away from the beach at my house. And I'm just grateful for the ability to be healthy and able to go outside and enjoy this lovely weather. And I am also grateful for the place where I work, because I work with the smartest, most amazing people at my school and in Northern New Jersey, Epic School. And I'm very, very grateful for the support that they give to our students and to each other. And so there you
Yeah.
have it.
I love it. I love it. See, that's great. See, this is a great conversation. I really hope that people can really resonate with this topic, especially for those grandparents out there, because a lot of grandparents are now dealing with this. You're
Mhm.
not the only one. My parents are not the only one. So it's like it's becoming so much more greater than what we even know. And there's so many parents that are so silent still with not even having their child be tested to be on the spectrum. You know what I mean? Or just they just avoid because it's still a taboo in their eyes. And what would you say to those people who still have this taboo stigma of autism and just being diagnosed with it?
I would say that get diagnosed as early as you suspect there might be an issue, because the more support that is provided in the form of, appropriate education and OT, PT, speech, all of those supports, putting them in place as early as possible will allow your child to just succeed and become, a functioning, active member of society in whatever capacity that looks like, however that looks. But
Yeah.
they need that chance. They need that chance, and they need those supports.
Absolutely, they sure do. And it's sad to say that the time is catching up to us. But what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking? Even though, let's be honest, this whole entire conversation, you really truly brought some great advice for us to think on. But what can be some lasting words to keep on thinking?
I think I would just suggest that grandparents in particular listen a lot, listen more than talk, and listen to what is needed and try to provide what is needed as best as they can. And I welcome anyone to go on Amazon or Barnes and Noble and purchase my book, Grandparenting on the Spectrum: A Journey from Both Sides of the Desk.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That's the goodness that we have to offer to you today. Hopefully, this brings some light into this topic, and hopefully, this brings some like a sense of direction for those grandparents out there who are listening and who want to be more involved and who want to really take that initiative to do something different than what they're used to. You know what I mean? I applaud you for even just tuning in and listening and having that desire within to do something about it. So please check her out. I have her lovely photo on my website. Just bloop, click right there. If you're already on the website, it goes directly to hers so that you can obviously continue on thinking with all the great content that she has to share with the world. And if you're listening in audio or if you're on YouTube, look in the description and you have access to her website so that you can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.